welcome to the very first episode of Tales of a New Witch. I'm your host, Angie Bryant. Now, this show is called Tales of a New Witch for the fact that I am a new witch. I've only been practicing the craft daily for a year and a half. That makes me a baby witch, a beginner witch, an initiate, a new witch, right? So this show is going to be about all the experiences and the feelings and the thoughts and all that kind of stuff that goes through my mind and maybe some of yours when you're starting off on a new lifetime journey, this new spiritual path of witchcraft. So for the first episode, I felt like it would be fitting if I talked to you guys a bit about how I got started on this path and what made me decide a little bit later in life to become a new witch. So a few years ago, I was going through a lot emotionally, just having a tough time feeling grounded and centered. And, I just felt like I was spinning out of control. And we had just recently moved to this new place where we have this nice yard and a bit of woods at the back of the yard. Really nice nature-ish place. And so I started hiding away a little bit outside whenever I got the opportunity, whether it was 5 minutes or an hour. I just started spending a lot of time outdoors, all types of weather, all seasons, in the morning, in the evening, you get the point. A lot of time, more time than I normally would have spent outside. I even took up cutting the grass from my husband because it became my newest favorite hobby because I got to spend more time outside, on my own, just with my thoughts, with nature, riding along on our little riding mower for a good solid hour, just me and nature. And it became my new favorite hobby. So after a few months of this, just me spending more time outside, I started to put two and two together, and realizing that this time that I was spending outside was really, really changing the way I felt emotionally on the inside. I would go outside because I was feeling super frustrated or overwhelmed and angry or, any of those kind of emotions. And I would go outside and spend some time, walking across the yard or sitting under a tree. And suddenly I was feeling better, not instantaneous, obviously, but, it felt like my worries and my frustrations would kind of just melt away into the ground. And then I could breathe again, and, it just was dawning on me that, wow, I'm really starting to feel connected to nature in a way that I never realized before. And I even said that to myself, girl, you are such a nature girl, and then like the next thought was, wow, maybe you're a witch. Kind of laughed a little bit at first because this was not something that I'd ever grown up around or thinking that this could be possible, But it was this thought that popped in my head. It came from somewhere, right? However, I am a big overthinker. My mind is always churning. So immediately upon, thinking, wow, I could be a witch, and pretty amazed, for a second. That's what I'm feeling. Amazement and awesomeness. This would be cool, right? But then my next thought, as my brain is churning, is that can't possibly be right. How can I be a witch? I didn't grow up with any family members, being a witch or practicing witchcraft. So I couldn't possibly be a witch, right? You have to kind of be born into this, don't you? It's a hereditary thing, right? maybe. I mean, I had always been a little bit different from the family growing up. I was really, really shy, very quiet, kind of hung around on the outside, just didn't quite feel like I fit in, right? But that can mean a million things, huh? That doesn't mean that I'm a witch. But this is the thought processes, in my mind. And I knew one thing for sure. I really wanted to be a witch. It felt so right when I would say this to myself. Start doing some research and look into this concept. Is it possible to be a witch if you're not born into it? And I am a reader. I've always loved to read. So I started with online because it was easy when I was taking care of a little baby to, look at my phone and search up articles. I started joining some Facebook groups, some articles, and watching some YouTube videos and checking out ideas on how you can tell if you're a witch, right? Because I wanted to know if it was possible for me to be a witch. I even spent some time reading those articles titled 10 signs that you're really a witch, or 5 things to look for if you think you might be a witch. Yeah, I looked into those kinds of things, just trying to figure my way out because my mind was having a hard time wrapping around the idea that this was really me. I guess I had just spent too much time growing up with those preconceived notions of what a witch is. And since I didn't have anybody to talk about growing up with this kind of stuff, I needed some time, I guess, in my mind to feel like this could be really possible. Because not only did I want this confirmation that it was possible, but I wanted it to be authentic. I wanted it to be real. I didn't want to just tell myself that I was a witch and just go on like nobody, go on about my way and not really care if I was being truthful or not. Does that make sense? Like, I wanted to be able to say I'm a witch and know what I was talking about. And that it was a really real concept. I wanted to be able to say that this is me. This is a part of me. It is authentic to me. And it's not just something I made up or said I was, right? Like, I could say that I'm an alien and convince myself that this is true. But I needed to find proof of a sort that me feeling like I was a witch was possible. For a while, I actually even would read those articles that, would show you how to find these special marks, that could tell if you're a witch, or look at your palm signs. I studied my palm lines constantly, trying to see if there was proof that I could be a real witch. And all of this sounds crazy and silly now, but these were the things that ran through my mind in the beginning as I was finding my way toward starting this path. And all the doubting that would go through my mind, this was just part of my process, my crazy mind process of how my mind works, the crazy processes of how my mind works. Okay, so then once I got past the point of, does it have to be hereditary, or can this be for anyone? Then I started looking into books. Remember all those articles and things online that I was looking up? A lot of them suggested reading material, of course. Different books that you should start with to find some answers, right? So I started scouring online used bookstores for these titles. And I read a lot. But I like to read, so it was great, right? It was a good thing for me. And I still have books on my shelves that I haven't read yet, but that I want to. and I will always be reading. I'm a reader. I will always read. So I read a lot. and I started finding many references and other people's experiences and opinions that, no, Angie, you don't have to be born into it to be a witch. Anybody can be a witch. You just have to want it, right? So during this time, I had been telling my close friends and family that I was interested in the religion of Wicca. It was just much easier way to explain my interest into this, why I was reading all of these books. And I did read books on Wicca. I did look into it as an option for me. I decided it wasn't quite the way I was feeling, but it was still easier to explain to my friends and family as a way of the new path that I was taking, to explain that to them, because unfortunately, like most people, they have preconceived notions when you hear the word witch. And Wicca just seems more, less threatening, I guess is the term. Most people that I know would say that Wicca is just a person who worships nature. They don't think of them as someone who maybe casts spells, which, we know really has nothing to do with either or. But, the people that I know, that's where their line of thinking goes. So that's the way that I started with it. I felt more like it was a way to ease them in to the real me, the part of me that was coming out finally, rather than the part of me that they'd always known, before this was not Angie the witch. It was just Angie the quirky friend, So anyway, so we went through that a little bit. And then I started really, as I got more into my research and reading and felt more like I was finding the parts of me that were ready to come out, I decided that I wanted to do a self-dedication ritual. I wanted to formally announce to the world, to the universe, well, I guess the universe, not really the world, because I didn't come out as a witch until just recently, but to the world at large, people. But to the universe, I wanted to do a self-dedication ritual. I wanted to let the forces know that I was serious about this, that I wasn't just reading about it or thinking about it, that I really wanted to walk this path. So I picked a day in the spring. It was actually the very first day of spring. And I decided that we have a small, like an acre or so of woods behind our house. And I decided I was going to go in there, into the woods, and do my ritual there. Just me and nature. I never really seriously thought about joining a coven during all of, my research and coming to terms with this. It just didn't seem to fit me. For one, I am a very shy person around strangers, and I know just not really fall in line with Angie the YouTube show person, which I am doing now. But it is true. I am a pretty shy person, so meeting strangers and trying to fit in with a coven was just too daunting, honestly, for me. But also, another reason why it just didn't seem like it would fit is that the rituals that I was performing and learning about and figuring out on my own was just really personal, right? And the idea of doing it in front of somebody else just wasn't as comfortable for me. So coven isn't for me, which is okay. That's another thing that I love about this path is the diversity of it. You know, you really can take what feels right for you and create your own craft around that. All right, so back to my self-dedication ritual. So I decided to go into these woods behind my house and make my intentions known in a little ritual. And as I was walking across the yard, these two hawks flew in from, I don't know where. I hadn't noticed them before. And they just flew in and they flew above my head and they followed my path through the woods. And I got around to a bit about the middle of the woods where I wanted to stay. And I couldn't see them, but, you know, I did hear them from time to time. And I did my ritual. And when I was ready to go, you know, I turned around and I went back out the path. Those same two hawks came back through above my head, you know, and flew out with me out of the woods and then just flew off into the sky. And it couldn't have been more perfect for me. I absolutely 100% feel like those hawks were my witnesses to my self-dedication. They, you know, they guided me into the woods. They hung around during the ritual and they guided me back home. And, you know, they were like my little, like I said, so this is so strange and personal to talk about, but it was like they were my guides and yet like a witness, you know, like you have a witness to important events in your life, right? Someone who can vouch for you and someone who can spread the word. You know, that was what kind of went through my mind when I was sitting around thinking about my ritual afterwards, was that like those two hawks were my witnesses and then they flew off afterward to let, you know, the whole universe know that here I was, I'm a new witch, you know, and it was really, really, really awesome. So there you have it, folks. That was the story of how I first started out on the path of witchcraft. And I want to thank you all so much for tuning in to my very first episode. And if you like what you see and you want to follow some more of my stories and see where this is going to take us, please like and subscribe. So until next time, goodbye for now.